In any good story, you're going to have a rivalry. In Bannerlord, the geographical situation gives us likely rivalries for the field of glory. And in this episode and series, you'll learn to confront your main rivals with devastatingly effective tactics. Buckle up. Alright friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment, and welcome back again to another episode from our Bannerlord Rivalry series, where we help you deal with a pugnacious rival. In this case, we will face off against the Aserai with the Khuzait. We continue this series trying to help you deal with your naughty neighbor next door. We'll help you deal with these nasty Vanguard Ferris. We'll talk about strategy in these battles, and of course we will execute tactics over a multitude of different battlefields and types of enemy forces, right? In this first example here, I'm just combing through the troops to make sure that we haven't selected any incorrectly. Both sides have tier 3 through 6 units, so it's basically a medium to excellent equipped army for both sides, which should equalize the armies roughly for both sides. Now we're going to do the sergeants here this first battle, but we have the RTS mode, so we don't have to drag you through a 7-minute boring slugfest here as the AI does weird things. Now, we're outnumbered here by 10%, and we will progressively make these harder and introduce more and more complex tactics as we find these challenges too easy. Frankly, the Khuzait, once you have great tactics, are utterly dominating. It's kind of terrifying what you're capable of. There's also going to be a lot of swirling in this episode, right, as both of these two different kingdoms swirl counterclockwise, trying to flank the enemy, trying to get the advantage on the other's ranged unit. Now, the Khuzait are committing a cardinal sin here. I pointed it out because sometimes players still do this. I watch videos of guys, even some prominent YouTubers who are doing this. Don't skirmish with your horse archers without any support, right? These guys were hiding up in the hills like Wormtongue. They got their sack of grain and they're terrified. Don't do that, right? You want to use your units in concert here. The Khuzait made a classic mistake, and it's going to cost them dearly. The Vanguard Ferris and the Vanguard of the infantry is closing in on these terrified guys in the forest here, and I suspect they'll do okay for a little while until that infantry line reaches in there with their palace guards. The Aserai have really good infantry, and in fact, it's probably second overall as far as just F1, F3, because the palace guards and the Vanguard, or excuse me, the veteran infantry mix really, really well. The Aserai veteran infantry are outstanding, and they all have ranged weapons, which brings up another cardinal point. Brings up another prominent point in these battles today. The key with the Khuzait is to keep moving, of course, but the other big key is to stay at long range, long to medium range. You do not want to be at intermediate range because you will get drilled with lethal javelins. So, a little bit of a dance here we're going to try to perform in these battles. A little bit of kiting, of course, plenty of flanking, right? We have the ultimate flanking tool possible, lots of horse archers. Now, I realized I want to do easy tactics for at least a few of these episodes. I can't just jump you guys straight into incredibly difficult tactics, overwhelm the players maybe that they just started commanding armies. We want to simplify at least the first battle or two in this series. That way you guys have a little bit of a stepping stone, right? You can graduate from your Bachelor's of Arts at killing all the way to your PhD in killing in Bannerlord. Alright, so RTS mode in hand here. Let's go ahead and engage. Now what we've done here is design basically two different sides of our army, right? One of the sides here is infantry heavy. There's an infantry division, archers, and cavalry. And then on the right here, we've got a cavalry division, and I selected the highest level cavalry and all of our horse archers, a gigantic horse archer division in the fourth corps. That is going to be critical in this battle, and how we use them is going to be critical. The biggest thing is basically jockeying them back and forth. Now, horse archers shoot really well standing still. In fact, I've slowly sort of adapted with horse archers to using them static, right? You move them to a position and then shoot. I think that is better than having them run around because they're a lot more accurate when they stand still. Even if they're on a horse, if they're moving, they're not very accurate. Now, I've tested this with 1.3. We are playing 1.3, and they're reasonably accurate still on horse, but it doesn't seem like it's dramatically improved. A lot of the other archers and skirmishers seems like it's improved, but the horse archers don't seem to be. I'll move these guys back here. I don't want to say Khuzait has been nerfed, but they might have been. We'll see how we do in these battles here. I think the moving horses are nerfed a little bit, perhaps. All right. So the enemy horse archers are dispersed here. It was a small force anyways, not really threatening us. Our square's in the center here, and I'm basically going to move that to wherever threats are, right? It's just our whole infantry division in a square. Mostly dart, well actually they're all spearmen, right? Because they have no other units. They have sort of rudimentary infantry, but that's fine, right? Because they're outstanding defensive units. Now the enemy's vanguard's moving up, right? We want to flank, and this division over here has one job: eat javelins. I just saw a guy shield break, another guy got killed. Better them than our horse archers, right? The Khuzait cavalry is solid. It's not spectacular, but you want to use it defensively in a battle like this because your Khan's guards are spectacular. Now over here, we're just going to kind of meet their cavalry with ours. I know some of this is more movement than a lot of players like, but if you countercharge with cavalry there, it might keep them off our archers a little bit. Let's keep backing these horse archers up into the hills. Right, the enemy infantry should only reach your horse archers if you fall asleep. Right, if you're AFK or something like that, you should always be able to kite them. Now, this second division we're going to kite as well, and this is about the distance you want to start to consider kiting because of all those ranged units right there. And what I mean, of course, is the throwing weapons. They are going to start unloading javelins very soon. Now we want to destroy this infantry vanguard. That's the most present threat. The archers are kind of back a ways. They're shooting at some of our cavalry lines. We've got cavalry playing defense behind me. We've got an infantry square they're shooting at. This is the most present threat. All of these infantrymen. So let's kite with this archers here before we get pounded with throwing axes and whatnot. And we're going to keep these horse archers right on the flank of the enemy here. They're just being torched. We've got our square over there. We can use it whenever we want. But right now, I like it just absorbing throwing weapons, sort of menacing the enemy, making, like a real player would wonder what you're doing with it. You just have your infantry just standing there, and I like that, right? I like the enemy being disconcerted, not really sure what's going on. It works with players, and it definitely seems to with the AI, right? The AI is kind of, they menace the square a little bit, and then they go the other direction. Just killed their hero, whatever the guy's called, their captain. He groaned. Ah! He took a straight glaive across the face, and that would be it for that fella. Now their infantry's basically destroyed, so I'm actually moving my square towards them because I want to get rid of these infantrymen. Right? I'm sick of shooting at them and wasting our arrows, so I'm actually going to bring our infantry over here and just charge them just to kill them all. These guys are really close to routing. In fact, a lot of them are routing. Their shields are full of arrows. Horses are being obliterated. And now, the only thing left to kill is their archers. And I think they're just straight out fleeing, right? These guys are smart. They realize that archers alone against the force they're facing here is absolutely fatal. They're running off the battlefield. And so mission number one, right? Destroy, I would say, a medium-strong Aserai force. Obviously highly successful. They really didn't pose any threat to our army there. All of our divisions are in good shape and about a 4-to-1 kill ratio, despite the fact we're outnumbered. All right, let's progressively make these more difficult. Let's see, what can we do here? We can make more of a mixed army. Basically, if you're using the custom battle and you want to make it harder for yourself, keep increasing the number of javelin cavalry they have. That'll make it hard, right? And of course, we will make the numbers more and more difficult. We'll leave the same format here, and now we're outnumbered at 30%, right? Don't try this at home. Of course, I jest, right? They say that on TV when somebody tries something difficult or dangerous. I want you to try this at home. The custom battle menu is probably the easiest way to learn Bannerlord. Just get in here, emulate some of these tactics. If you have the RTS mod, even better, right? Fly overhead, observe distances, observe how some units do, and then learn from that. And come back to the channel. I'm supposed to pump the channel up here. All right, so I'm changing a little bit of tactics here. We're adding a step for this battle. We're going to have basically an auxiliary monster Consguards division. The 6th division is going to be back a little ways, sort of to our left, to sort of repel cavalry that attack that side of our formation. You could sort of consider them the bodyguards for the main core of the army. Over here, we still have the 5th and the 4th, and these two divisions are basically married. We do shield and shock tactics on the channel. It works very well. A line of cavalry in front of shock troops. Well, this also works really well, and that is having a bunch of Consguards or horse archers behind a shield wall of cavalry. The cavalry protect them from being skewered, and if anything attack the cavalry, they get shot to pieces. So again, more symbiosis, which is a really good thing for your army. All right, this is different. I didn't quite realize we pumped them up so many horse archers, but that's all right. We've got the medicine for what ails us here, right? We're going to close these guys off. In fact, they just trapped themselves. They're totally closing in on our cav line. The 6th is going to block their circle attempt, right? Any attempt to circle our forces here is going to result in them headlong charging Consguards. I wouldn't want to be in their army right now, right? We've got them now pinched and crimped on this side over here. In fact, we can use our horses over there to protect our archers, our horse archers again here. And let's close the trap here, right? If the enemy wants to kill these horse archers, I mean, they're just suiciding. I mean, I guess we can comply, right? Look at this. The death spam is unbelievable. You don't see a death spam like that in the custom battle very often. They're almost killing nobody, and they're screaming and getting blown up. Those are tier 4 and 5 units, and they just melted like a bunch of looters. All right, so our square is doing its job, right? Our cavalry division, the 5th, these are our MVPs, right? Even though they don't kill anybody, hugely valuable, right? They just absorbed most of the javelins that were going to kill our Consguards. That's their job. Now here, the enemy's sort of charging in with all their Vanguard Ferris, and they're doing it rather audaciously. I mean, we have like 250, 300 horses here. I like to charge in situations like that. It's a numbers game, right? We have like double or triple their amount of horses. Especially since we just wiped out their horse archers. So we repelled them something fierce. Let's move in here for the kill, right? They've got now a Vanguard in the center, and those guys are fucked. They'd be peeing themselves in real life. Our army's basically carving apart everything, and they know they can't move, right? That's a bunch of infantry and archers, and they're basically praying for reinforcements here, because that's the only way they're not going to be laying in the ground full of arrows. We're moving our defensive units up, the 1st Division, the 3rd Division, the 5th Division. And now it's flanking time. Now we're taking losses as we move in. That's okay, right? It's temporary. The next 10 or 20 seconds we'll suffer some losses. But very quickly here, we have crossed their T with the 4th Division. The 6th Division is practically behind them. We can go in here and stab some of these poor guys. They're in a really bad position though. They're being shot from 3 sides. Our archers still have ammo. In fact, I can see them shooting over my head here. This little tiny cav charge is not really going to threaten our infantry. Of course, our infantry hasn't even had battle yet. These guys are like, let me at them. I want to fight. So we will move them in to kill their Vanguard. But right now, it's more defense. They're in front of that 2nd Archer Division, right? So all these archers have a layer of shields in between them and the enemy. And now we can just close the trap, right? You basically surround and drown at this stage. Over here, we've got a cavalry line. We should have probably moved it closer. The 6th Division, so that's all Consguards mostly, just straight firing into the packed enemy ranks, and they are exterminated. And you can see what a bad position they are in. That would be horrifying. It looks like they just got reinforcements. You see the little arrow thing move, right? So some of these scenarios, there are going to be reinforcements because you can only have 1,000 units on the battlefield. So when it's 650 against, what do we have, 500, they're going to get reinforcements at some point. We would too if we needed them, right? But we're not going to need them because it's just flushing green on the death spam. This next division that came in is going to wish they stayed in their castle. Now, a little dance here. We don't have to do any of this, right? You can see the power bar. We can definitely F1, F3, but why not do it with panache, right? What we're going to do here is drag our horse archer division right through these archers while they're being shot by Consguards and just smash all their troops to pieces. They're going to get trampled. I don't know what they're doing. I think they're routing. They're just kind of running, and now they get a whole bunch of horse archers trampling while our infantry plows through. And this battle should be over. That Consguard division is going nuts. I'm kind of staying out of the fray because I have no health. Even with the RTS mod, you don't want to die because your units for at least a few seconds will do haywire shit, and your divisions oftentimes will get mixed up. So paramount that you stay up when you're using the RTS mod. And 2 for 2, right? What a fucking massacre here. This is almost worse than the first. This whole battle swung when we just exterminated their horse archer division. It was a huge division that just melted like butter. Alright, so another disaster for the enemy here. Almost a 4-to-1 kill ratio, and we have equal quality troops. We're just kind of tearing through them. Alright, so let's crank the difficulty here. Let's do even more Vanguard Ferris. We will fight in their hometown in the desert here. And this is kind of the nightmare scenario for a commander. A huge amount of Vanguard Ferris. We're outnumbered by 30%. They've got tough infantry still. And we've reduced the horse archers. After that debacle where we just butchered their horse archers, let's not gain any advantage on them. Now let's let the sergeants fight this just to see if the sergeants... well, frankly, this is the sadist in me. It wants to see how badly the Khuzait here get butchered, being outnumbered by 30% and a huge amount of Vanguard Ferris. This is going to be ugly. Now, it's a beautiful, beautiful battlefield. I wish I fought on this battlefield more in campaigns. Look at that center rock. That's really interesting for tactics. You could play like King of the Mountain there and put archers all around it. Now, the enemy's coming up in a suboptimal formation, but the Khuzait just did a really bad thing. They kind of separated their forces around that hill, and the javelins start to fly here. And that, that first 30 seconds against the Aserai, you really are holding on for dear life. That's the most important thing, is to be able to weather the storm. If you can weather the storm of the first 30 to 60 seconds in a normal battle against the Aserai, you're going to win. Because once they lose their javelins, in other words, once they've thrown them into your flesh, the Aserai Vanguard Ferris are fairly mediocre noble units. Their spear and melee skills are not, they're not banner knights. They're not that good. Those javelins, though, will wreck shop. And because of that, the rest of our army here is destroyed. I actually had a pretty decent little cavalry charge there. It's cool to see with the RTS mod, there have been tactics that have been adjusted for the AI. Either that, or I'm just seeing stuff and making shit up. I saw tactics I've never seen before recently from the Sturgeons, and I have fought thousands, I don't know if I can say thousands, hundreds of battles to be sure. So, interesting. Although, however, our plan is to remain defensive because we're getting exterminated. It looks like that the enemy force just got reinforcements. In come a huge amount of Vanguard Ferris, and it looks like something out of Kingdom of Heaven, where you're just being trampled by all these Mamluk cavalry, and everybody's getting obliterated and running for the hills. Every guy's got 30 javelins sticking out of his back, and the next scene you see is a bunch of buzzards eating your flesh. Predictably, of course, the AI got blasted here by all these Vanguard Ferris. So how do we deal with this, right? I've got a couple ideas. Of course, we're going to try to keep distance. That's the most important thing. But I've got a little feint attack planned. Not a feint attack, but a little feint defensive structure planned to defend against this. Of course, these settings can be the same. We're not going to adjust anything, right? We don't need to make it any easier for us. We'll just take charge. All of these, we do that. And again, that baseline was pretty rough, right? This looks like an impossible battle to win, and it might be, right? None of these are guaranteed wins. We show sometimes when we lose these, as long as they're close, right? I'm not going to show you where I butcher something, we get waxed. All right, let's do 2 divisions again. I like this separation of Cav because I want to use that 5th division defensively here. This 5th Cav division, we're going to use them in a unique manner. This 3rd division over here is almost purely defense as well, right? That 3rd division of cavalry, their sole job is to fend off cav attacks, right? Horse archers. All right. Now, landscape's important, right? I've got a little ridge here for the archers to shoot down. I'm going to move up just a little bit here. It'll crimp the enemy just a touch between that hill, and that can be valuable for us. The archers can come up to this ridge and the 1st Division can move up, right? This 1st Division, again, has almost no job in the Khuzait army. And you could really argue you don't need infantry when you're playing the Khuzait. Now, I'd still have cavalry. I still think you want a lot of shields. I don't think 400 Kongsguards is the optimal Khuzait force, right? You want to have some shields, whether it's for situations like this against a huge amount of Vanguard Ferris or keep siege, right? You need to have some shields sometimes. Clobber a few of these horse archers here. I'm not going to fight a huge amount because we don't want to wildly swing the battle, but, you know, can't help it. There's Mamluk archers that need to be pounded. All right, so I don't really want to waste a huge amount of ammo on horse archers, and I've talked about that before. Generally less than like 15 or 20. I don't even open fire. I just kind of let them shoot at us, and then maybe after they've killed a guy or two, I get angry and open fire. But you can shoot 4, 5, 6 rounds of ammunition here against the horse archers and really cost yourself, right? Because you need those arrows later on. Because they do have a little bit of an ammo shortage when it comes to their archers. Their tier 3 archer only has 1 quiver. So you got to be careful with their ammo, especially if you don't have higher end archers. All right, let's dismount these guys here. Dismount. And what we're going to do is put them behind cover of their horses in a square. And what I'm hoping that does is basically give them more protection from javelins, right? They're getting pounded with arrows and javelins, and hopefully with that little layer of dismounted cavalry in front of them, it gives them a little bit of protection. Now, it's very bloody here, right? They're pouring in on us with all kinds of cavalry, but we're also shooting shitloads of archers into their forces, right there. This is basically a very bloody exchange here. And look at our poor infantry. They're trying to hold on in there. Imagine being in that maelstrom. Let's kite just a little bit. I'm tempted to kite with the archers as well, but I don't think we're going to. I would actually prefer you stood your ground here, because as soon as that cavalryman leaves him, he's shooting point blank at another archer, or excuse me, at another cavalryman. They're also up there using their little scimitars, and what a nice death span, right? We're outnumbered, outgunned here, and we're smoking them so far. If you move your archers while they're under assault, you know, they're completely vulnerable. They rarely do anything offensively. They basically get cut down and knocked all over the place. But if they're holding their ground like this, they actually do a decent job. Just make sure they're not doing it against heavy infantry. There is heavy infantry moving in now. So we're going to try to do a little bit of sort of distracting and killing here to prevent them from scorching our archers. The enemy's starting to rout. I hear at least some troops saying the day is lost. That was a really good exchange for us, though. And I think a big part of that was basically that 5th Division absorbing javelins, absorbing arrows, right? They're probably all but dead, but they sure did their job. All right, so I've got a screen in front of us here, right? We're going to continue to push that 3rd Division right in front of us to help the rest of our troops. I mention that all the time. The Cav shield wall is immensely important in Bannerlord. Now, these are reinforcements for us. This is the first time I've seen this. The enemy still has some infantry here, sort of fighting at the phrase of the battle. But we've got the 6th Corps moving up, and we have a blind flank up ahead here. We're going to be able to use this, especially if the enemy pulls back. That hill there is going to provide cover for us. They have archers now, so let's deal with these archers, right? I've got cavalry here, 55 horse archers, or excuse me, 55 cavalry, so we're going to move them up in a shield wall, get archers on the enemy's flanks here, but we're not going to let them stand there and shoot at us, right? We're going to trample them with this heavy cavalry. Right now, those guys are absorbing arrows, letting our units move up. Now we can bring them in and knock the shit out of all these archers. And here you just say, follow me, right? They're coming up holding their shields. All I want to do here is sort of scramble all these archers, right? We want to knock them around and cause them to do exactly what they're doing, right? Get shot in the face because they're trying to run. All right, let's use this blind flank here. Over here on our far left, behind me, we're going to be able to tuck those units in where the enemy can barely see them. Okay, we're getting some archer reinforcements. What do we got going on here? They got, it looks like mostly archers came out for the enemy. Now, we got a lot of units that are out of ammo, right? These are horse archers standing there. That means they're either out of range or out of ammo. Get these archers moved up. It's still a formidable threat, but looking up at the power bar, you guys know this battle's over. Still, let's fight it out like it's close. This blind ridge here, you see how they have to run over that before they can see our units? Perfect. It's basically a combination of a naked flank and a reverse slope climb. Now, they're coming up faster than I anticipated, so we'll get our cavalry and horse archers here, but now we close the fucking front on them. All these horse archers come up with infantry support. They're going to get shot to pieces, and we're going to be able just to completely cavalry charge these archers. We've got so many different archers coming in. A lot of them are shooting as they move up, and now we can just start dragging these units right through their packed ranks. This is where it really works well to have a lot of cavalry because nobody can shoot. None of their units are going to be able to shoot. They're going to get knocked all over the place. In fact, we can bring the cons guards in here. I'm going to get a little bit of melee at the end of this episode, and we're going to send the cons guards in here and hold fire. Right? These guys, kill them all. Now they're going to start bobbing their glaives up and down. These poor Aserai archers. Alright, well hopefully this example is beneficial for you fellas out there considering playing the Khuzait. It is a hell of a lot of fun. You don't have to do all these advanced tactics. I just want these to be part of your tool bag. Thanks again for watching, friends. Please hit that like button, and you know there will be more. And I will see you next time.